The Environmental Protection Agency's job is to make sure that we have clean air and clean water. Let's take a look at what America would be like without the EPA. Here is Joe. Joe owns a toy factory. He makes toy cars, and he sells these cars for $10 each. When he makes the cars, there's a dangerous chemical left over. It costs Joe $1,000 per week to have someone take the chemicals away. Joe pays Annie, who makes sure the chemicals are destroyed without hurting anyone. Every week, Annie comes and takes away the dangerous chemicals. One day, Ron saw the toy factory. He said, "I want to make toys too," so he got his own factory. He started making toy cars, and he sold them for $10. Soon he found out that to get rid of the dangerous chemicals was going to cost $1,000 per week. "Ouch," he said, "that's really expensive. I don't want to pay that." He thought, what can I do instead? Ding! He had an idea. "I'll just dump the chemicals in the river," he said. "It's just a little bit, and it's a big river. I'm sure it'll be fine, and I won't have to pay $1,000 every week. And now that I don't have to pay to have the chemicals taken away, I can sell my cars for only $7. So which cars do you think the people bought? Did they buy Joe's cars for $10 or Ron's cars for $7? Of course they all bought Ron's cars. Nobody bought Joe's cars anymore. What could he do? Well, he could start dumping his chemicals in the river, but he knew it would hurt fish and people. Or he could close his toy factory and all the people working there would have no jobs. Either way, Annie wouldn't have any work to do anymore. After a while, the river became polluted. People started getting sick from eating fish from the river or swimming in it, or maybe even water from the faucets became unsafe to drink. People became angry that the water was polluted. Nobody could swim in the river anymore, and nobody could go fishing either. The police came to tell Ron to stop polluting the river. But Ron said, "Hey, there's no law that says I can't put the chemicals in the river." So the police officers went away. There was nothing they could do. The mayor of the town came, and he made a speech. "We need to clean up this river," he said. "I have a plan. It will cost the town $5 billion, and nobody will be able to swim in the river or go fishing for 5 years. We had money to build a new school, a new park, and a new playground, but now we will have to use that money to clean the river instead. As part of cleaning up the river, we will capture all the chemicals in barrels and get them taken away so they don't make the river even more polluted." That's life without the EPA. Think I'm exaggerating? Think that companies wouldn't do this? Well, here is a picture of the Cuyahoga River in Ohio. In 1969, this river was so polluted that it caught fire. The river was actually on fire. The EPA was created the next year in 1970 and has been working hard ever since to make sure we have clean air and clean drinking water. Now let's look at America with the EPA. Joe owns a factory and makes toys. He pays Annie $1,000 per week to take away the toxic chemicals. Ron decides not to pay $1,000 per week at his factory, and he dumps the chemicals in the river. The EPA police come to Ron's factory, and Ron goes to jail. He has to pay the $5 billion to clean up the river. If he had paid Annie $1,000 per week, it would only have cost about $1 million over 20 years, which is a whole lot less than $5 billion and a whole lot better than going to jail. Now, some people say the EPA is unfair for businesses, but who is it unfair to? Is it unfair to Joe, who had to decide between polluting the river and closing his business? Is it unfair to Ron, who had to pay a fine and go to jail after he polluted the river? Is it unfair that the people of the town can't have a new school because they have to pay to clean up the river? The EPA makes the rules the same for all businesses. Without the EPA, only cheaters would win. People like Joe who don't want to pollute would lose. And we all lose when we don't have clean air and water. Some of you have been thinking, what about other countries like China? What if the EPA makes all the factories in America clean, but there's no EPA in China? And the factories there are dumping their chemicals in the rivers. Well, China is becoming polluted right now because there is no EPA. So what do we do if the American-made cars cost $10 and the ones made in China cost only $7? This is a hard question. One thing we can do is try to buy things that are made in America. There's no easy answer to this problem, but polluting our water and air is certainly not the answer. We don't want polluted air and water, and we don't want this to ever happen again. Keeping factories clean is just one of the EPA's jobs. Here's a whole bunch of other things that they do. Thanks for watching our video. If you're old enough to remember Cuyahoga or wise enough to want to keep the EPA, please support the EPA whenever possible. Every time you drink clean water, see a blue sky, or eat fish, you can thank the EPA.